ago, months
Yeah,
ago. I'm like,
I mean, I don't want to derail us at all, but Tom, on 24 is like the platform where what they paid for was everything's to be uploaded, and then you just kind of cut through it. So there is no
broadcast. There's no live component to it.
no, there is. They just hadn't included it in their contract.
Yeah. Well, you can do it, but it wasn't included in their contract.
They just didn't pay for it.
And I was actually impressed by On24's pushback on using live, because it's like, do you really need that? So they call it, what did they call it? Simu-Live?
Semi-live. Which to me, actually, I am totally...
I've been saying that forever,
It's live to tape. I mean, same thing.
But if you've got an interactivity where people are going to be like fielding questions as they come in, David.
Hey guys.
Are you on the right Zoom, David?
Yeah, he is.
So. I hope so.
Going to be our New York affiliate.
Yeah.
Well, we got to have something in the East Coast time zone, right? So we're just going to let a couple more people filter in here. Before we'll get started, we're just kind of chatting for now. I want to take a poll. I think everybody is on a Mac today except for me. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Okay. I want to check with Peter and Arnell and those guys, but then I am going to screen share a System at Friday's Films to show you guys to do it on a Mac.
Nice reaction, Roger.
I mean, he said a poll, so.
Yeah, exactly. He gave me a little thumbs up. Yeah. You got to go into your participant, I believe, right, Roger? Where'd you do it from?
It's just at the bottom, reactions.
Oh, yeah, in the reactions GIF. We got Elvin. Hey, buddy.
What's going on, guys? You hear me okay?
How are you doing? Yeah.
Sorry about that. I realized I was definitely searching for my headphone.
That word.
On my ear. So glad they're still working.
All good. Just going to see if we can't get... I'm waiting for Peter and Colin. Let's just see if they hop in here. We'll give them another minute or so, and then I'll just get started, and we can catch them up. So just to give you guys a primer, here's Arnell. A couple of you haven't done all these training sessions yet. We've gone through sort of a high-level understanding of what our live shows are looking like and how we're running those. And I can send you guys links to previous videos or give you some one-on-one training to catch you up on stuff you may have missed in that respect. What we're going to go through today is a software called OBS. I've mentioned it a few times. It's open source. It's free. It's highly capable. And we're really going to focus using that piece of software for a graphics operator role. So that'll mean presenting slides into, oh, Peter was here. Here he is. Very cool. Presenting slides into the room, playing back videos. I'm also going to show you guys how to handle some of the stuff that our producers put back in the room, like countdown timers to say like wrap up Q&A, that type of text. So it's really just about driving graphics into our feed, be it back into Zoom or into my video switching in the ATEM. So I'm going to screen share, and I'm going to just ask one more time, are you guys on Macs or PCs? Some of you new guys, Elvin, Peter, Arnell.
I'm on both.
Both? Okay.
I'm running 2 Macs. I got the OBS on my desktop, and I'm on my laptop.
Great. I'm going to share from a Mac then so you guys can see it on one of our Friday's Film systems. So this is the OBS window. If you first launch the program, it might look like this with just a single video window. That's sort of like the standard mode. We're going to use it in what's called studio mode, which is closer to a traditional video switcher where you have a preview window on the left and a program window on the right. So just like in your ATEM, in Wirecast, you have what's the next shot is my left-hand side, and what's actually playing is the right-hand side. If you guys have already seen the Wirecast training, a lot of these things are the same, just named slightly differently and arranged slightly differently. So the first thing you have across the bottom here, where we're going to start looking, is your scenes window. Scenes are like layers inside Photoshop or inside Premiere. You can stack scenes on top of each other with opacity, things like that. We're going to use them as individual buckets for types of content. So you'll see I've already got a few built here. I've just made some scenes for us to work within. They're just kind of like folders. So I have videos, I have full screen titles, and I have webcam. I'll make a new one of those just to show you guys how I did that. You hit a little plus sign, pops up a new scene, and you can name it whatever you want. So we're going to use this for videos. Let's just say. I already use videos, right? Because I have it right here. So pretend like it worked.
Hey, really quick, Tom. I was late to the meeting, but are we recording this?
Yes, I'm recording my camera as well as the Zoom meeting, so we should have everything. I'll send it afterwards for everybody to review. So inside your scene, you have sources. Sources are the types of content we're bringing in. That could be the webcam. That could be a file you're playing back locally. Any type of media you're going to put into your stream will load here. So you can just double click or right click, I guess, add, and you can see you get all these options for types of sources. So a media source would be like our traditional video file playback stuff. Images for full screen titles. We'll also use window capture sometimes to capture the Zoom window on the same computer. With this software, you could, if you had this software and a couple of displays, just like I showed you how to do it in Wirecast, you could build an entire multicam Zoom show like we've been doing, all with the software here and the window capture and some trickery. It's really quite powerful. So we'll start with some media sources. So you name this whatever you want. So I'm going to call it video 1 because I'm going to have a bunch of these and I want them to be clear the order I'm going to play them in. So I'll name them by asset numbers or by name. And I've got one loaded on the desktop here for us. So this is a video file that we've had from one of our intuitive surgical replays. When you load the file here, you'll see some details about it, things that matter. Looping, depending on what you're doing with this video, if you have a song you want to play in the background for the first 30 minutes, you leave it on loop. Most of the videos, we turn that off. We would set them to restart, which means when you cut it from preview to program, it's going to auto start playing at the beginning of the file. And then I say show nothing when playback ends, it's just going to go black. We're not really going to care about that because we're just handling this as a playback system. All we're using OBS for is to play a clean video stream that a switcher can then cut to and route around, rather than using the software on the main encoding system. This is how we can start to split up our roles and allow more people to do parts of the job across, just like you'd have on any in-person live event, right? So we're gonna load our video here. And if I hit cut, it starts playing my video. So you could load 5 and 6 videos here. Let's see here, media source. So you could load a bunch of layers and then toggle them as we roll through. So let's just add another video file. I think I've got an episode of Roger's Low Fidelity Show. We'll play that next. And so now,
you're in the webcam
I see that.
scene.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm gonna. No, it doesn't work. You can't drag and drop. On Windows, you can do some pretty things you can't do here. So I'm gonna move that over because you're right. I should be doing that in the other shot. Remove. So if I do this inside videos, you can stack your layers here and toggle them on and off. So what I've been doing, and it's just, all of these things are one of many ways to handle something, but I'll load up all of my videos as layers here and turn them off on and off sequentially. So then I'm going to say, okay, and now I have video 2 down here. And in my preview window, I've loaded video 1 is playing. So I'm going to turn that off, and now you'll see black again because that's the first frame of video 2 now. And if I cut, video 2 is going to start playing. Now look, we got some issues here. This is where checking all our assets matters a lot. The first video I loaded was 1080. this video is 720 and it scaled for you, but OBS doesn't really show you that very well until you're live sometimes. So this is why we have to go through and check all our assets before a show, and like we can't be trying to do this live. So now if I can scale it and fix it. So I could load up all of my videos for my day here in this asset here. So similarly, I can load up all of my image assets in another layer. And I'll show you a quicker way of doing this in a second. Let's just see here. I gotta go to...
Scenes are just shots from Wirecast.
Exactly. That's the same. Yep. Where am I going? Network. I just want to get some assets from a show here. Come on.
Of all the pieces you're showing, I can't believe you're showing this one.
Hey, I just grabbed what was on the desktop. I was just looking for files before, and it was there.
This is a practice run.
Well, nobody's hearing it. Don't worry. Because I'm not actually using Zoom on this system. It's being a pain in the ass. Okay, well, let me show you the easier way of adding assets.
One quick question is,
yeah.
Anything that we will want to layer on top of something else all has to be within the same scene, correct?
Yeah, so the way I've been using it, say you wanted to do like a lower third or a picture-in-picture or something like that, I've always done that inside one scene, and I've gotten the best results out of that. After I show you some slide images, I'll switch over to my Windows system where I've got a more advanced project running. What am I doing here? I'm looking for network. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here and not paying attention to what I'm doing.
Command K, Tom. Command K.
Yeah, fine. Except for not that. So the other thing you can do is just drag files in directly from Finder here. Go back. Where is... There we go. Sorry, I'm trying to just get to an intuitive file that I know has some assets. The window scaling makes my life a little tricky here, sorry. Here we go. So we've got like a bunch of title cards here. And you'll notice they're all already numbered to match our asset numbers. So I can just drag those in. Bada bing, I got them all here, except for it does the exact same thing as Wirecast and puts them in reverse numerical order. Don't know why, bottom number from the bottom. So you either have to reverse all these, and you can move them one at a time. You can click and drag.
I think it adds the newest one on top. Can't you?
Yeah, so
in the settings?
I've not dug into that. No, it's individual. I don't know that you can. There might be a way to do that. But then what I would do with assets like these, cut that live, queue it up again, queue slide 2 now, for example, and then cut that live. So you're able to cut through all of your slide assets, and if you want to go back, you can just toggle layers. So that's how I've been doing it, stacking them all up and turning off the layers above, right?
So Tom, real quick, on this, when you bring in sources, like with when you haven't before you hide them, they'll show up on the preview window automatically.
Yeah, so like right now they're all stacked up. You can see all of these are turned on, but it's like stacked layers in Photoshop, so you can't see all of them at once. If I scale this, let's see here, let me pick the top layer, sorry. If I scale the top layer down, you can see the layers behind it, right? So you could do the same thing to scale down a picture-in-picture or a lower third or a little, bug in the corner, something like that. You can stack, you can see multiple layers stacked up here. You can also hear multiple layers. So for videos, I'll only have one on at a time. For photos, I don't care. If it's full screen slides, they're full screen slides. So it doesn't really matter. Like you could handle that either way. You could, if you really wanted to, make one scene per video file and cut between scenes like that. So I could have another one here. It's video 2. except for you spell it right, but who cares? And add my second video here. Media source. Whatever, let's go back to the one on the desktop. Sorry, Raj, I'm playing your videos more. So you could cut between, so let's go to here. This is playing this stacked layer, video 2, which is the low fidelity show. And I can go to this version, which is going to be the same video file improperly scaled now. And so you can cut that way and cut those videos live. That way, it's really about how you want to organize yourself in here. So that's like half of this, right? That's how you load files and queue them, but where do they go, right? That's the other half of this. So the way our live switching setups work, the computer that it's a graphics operator has one display you're looking at and a second display going into the ATEM. Or some of the computers have both displays into the ATEM. So for a graphics machine, what we'd have is one you're watching and one is your external. So on this computer you're looking at right now, it's actually got 2 displays. So I'm going to scale this to show you both for a second. And I'm going to close this because this is early. So ignore the fact that this is skewed because it's squishing 260 by 9 images. But what you do is you have a program projector. And if I turn that on my external display, it's a full screen, full bleed video that's going to take over that display and pipe out your graphics. So that could be, let's put up a better video that might show it so it's not scaled weird. So you can see I've got a control display and I've got an external display that's showing my feed to the world. The other half of that is audio though. You need to route audio with it. So I'm going to go back to a single display and show you that because dual display is hard to look at. So I'm going to cut away from this surgery just because we don't want to look at that. Okay, so your audio. So down here you have your audio mixer window. And all these windows you can actually drag and pop out and resize and rearrange however you see fit. But in here you have your individual sources. So you can see media source, aux, this would be the microphone in that computer. It's gonna have one built in. You have advanced audio properties for these. So this is where it's gonna let you choose how you're gonna monitor this audio and where you're gonna send it. So I have an HDMI display that is carrying audio and video. It's one of my output sources. So I can just go monitor and output. And now it's gonna send, and I can hear it in my headphones right now because it's sending over no machine. I don't think you guys can hear it because I'm not sharing audio. But so now it'll send that output to the world, right? To essentially into the ATEM and give me something to cut to. So this lets you can pick.
Is this like per scene, like in Wirecast? Does it have
Yeah, so you have to do it like steps. So if you'll see, if I cut to the webcam, this is the webcam in Friday's Films in a darkened office. And if I open this advanced properties again, you'll see this source is not monitored. So this is part of the whole process of setting up sources. But you'll notice there's an active. You can look at everything all at once if you disable this active sources only, and it'll give you the status here, and it can let you set this up for all of them at once. But every source needs to be assigned an output on the way out. So here I can go through and set all of my videos to monitor and output each time. We also talked about doing a mix minus in Wirecast. So you're sending some audio sources some places and others other places. This is the same thing. You could do different audio tracks for different places. So maybe I want to send, I don't want to send my microphone out to the world. The world's only going to get track 1, and the microphone's only going to go on track 2. And I'm going to use that microphone to go back into Zoom maybe. So I can talk to Zoom, but they don't hear themselves. Or maybe Zoom doesn't hear me and they only hear the videos, right? It just lets you take sources in and out of audio in and out of certain places you want to send it. So you could assign every output a track selection, and it will only hear those things. This one's a little bit, yeah.
With this, I haven't done the Wirecast training yet.
Yeah.
So do you guys have the ability to establish, it's like, I'm assuming this isn't this advanced, maybe it is. Can you put a macro on this so that you can have
on these outputs?
Yeah.
I know there are really powerful macro tools for OBS. I've not dug into them yet. I know there's a Stream Deck app. So Stream Deck makes a product that's like a little keypad. It's all like digital displays, and you can program the stream macros, which is great, but it's like $200. They have like a $10 iPhone app that lets you do the exact same thing, but on your phone. So you have like 16 programmable buttons on your phone that correspond to actions inside OBS. So those macros, I know you can set them up for specific scenes. So if you're used to using an ATEM, in the ATEM you use your numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to pick your shots. You can assign your scenes here to do the exact same thing, to cut those directly to those files. I'll show you a little bit of that because it's very powerful, but it's a little bit more manual. So as you can see, there's all of these options for potential macro keys and keyboard sets. You can see you can mute and unmute, and you can have buttons paired to do things on specific sources, and you can kind of go crazy. And as many sources as you add all get these same things. Like you can see here, show video 1, show video 2. So I could have keyboard shortcuts programmed to toggle which video is queuing from my list 1 through 10 or whatever. You just have to do it all manually is kind of the big thing. So like something like an ATEM, all those keyboard shortcuts are predefined and pre-built, and you can address them and you can tweak them, but it's kind of like it gives you a good starting point. This, it's just as expandable, but you got to do the heavy lifting yourself. So you'll have to assign these keyboard shortcuts as you go through. And you'll see it wants to do them in pairs. So one is going to hide and show, right? It's going to, so it's an on-off toggle, right? That's how they want them to work. But I've not really dug into these enough yet to say for sure they're that reliable. I will say the keyboard shortcuts in Wirecast are not reliable. I do not use those purposely because they just don't stick. You set them and they don't stick. So I would say if you want to get into OBS, start digging in and working through these keyboard shortcuts to set your own version of them. But it's not like you're going to have to write your own set of keyboard shortcuts, which is kind of annoying. So if it was me, I would try to match something I already knew, like the ATEM. You know, like you can set your transitions to spacebar. You can set your, you know, sort of the standard things you're expecting. So I'm going to switch over to OBS on my Windows system where I've got some more advanced stuff going on, just because I've built the project out a little more. So let me screen share again. Where's OBS? Okay, so this is OBS on my system locally. So you can see the layout's identical. It's just on a Windows system instead of a Mac. So half of your output is that projector mode I was talking about. So I can pick an output, and now I've got a source that is my playback, right? The other half is getting it back into Zoom. And so that's handled using a virtual camera output. And so there's the same tools in Wirecast. There's also another software I'm digging into called CamTwist. That's free on a Mac that does the same thing, but you have this virtual camera output. And on Windows, you get this interface, lets you pick up to 4 different outputs. But basically what it's doing is encoding your OBS output into a faux webcam that any software can see. So right now, that's how you've been seeing me this whole time, is through my virtual camera output inside Zoom. In Zoom, when you some of you have already seen this before, and I can't really show you because you can't share the Zoom window in Zoom. But next to your stop video, there's a little arrow up button. If you pick that, it'll show you all your video sources. And one of them will be your OBS camera. There's still some playing to do with that on a Mac. I found a good installer that seems to work, but I've not really vetted it yet. So as you guys start getting it set up, reach out to me if you start having any trouble with installing OBS or installing the virtual camera. I'll put links to those things in our Slack group or send them via email.
Be aware that Zoom, until the current version 504, had removed virtual camera support for 3 versions.
Yeah, so you're going to have to
It'll
update.
be there, but it won't do anything, and it still doesn't work.
Raj, I think, did you get it working yet? You had the virtual camera plugin working on a Mac.
I did, but it's not working. I'm not seeing it in the window of Zoom.
In Zoom, okay. I may have an answer for that. I want to work with you afterwards, and then I'll follow up with you guys as we get it a little more finalized.
It's possible that I had Zoom started first before I sent it out.
Yeah, so we'll test that, and I've run into a couple of hiccups with setting up OBS. When I first tried to install it on a Mac, I was running an older version of OS X, and that didn't work. And so, like, if you start to have any trouble with it, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect with you guys one-on-one and troubleshoot your specific issues with the software.
Hey, Tom, real quick, is it as simple as just going up to Tools and turning on your virtual camera out, and that's it, or is there another step?
Once you have the plugin installed, you do that, and you need to have that running before you launch Zoom.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Zoom should see it, but there may be a software signing you have to do. So I want to talk to you about that separately and prove the system first before we start teaching people something that may or may not be the right choice. So the other thing,
this is brand new too, just so you know. OBS has just kind of came up with this new.
Yeah,
plugin.
this plugin for Mac was launched on like the 20th of last month, so we're like kind of right on the edge here. On Windows, it's really easy to do. There's a virtual camera plugin. You get 4 outputs, and you're good to go. So the way a few of you will use this is to do like countdown timers and just simple text things to put that back in the room to give talent silent cues. So like for a producer like David and Zoe, you might use it this way. So in here, I've got a countdown. And the really simple way I figured out to do this is actually kind of a hack. There's a ton of plugins for OBS, and there's countdown plugins you could install that would give you these clocks. But rather than deal with that, I just did a screen share. So I'm going to rebuild this to show you guys how to do that. So first thing I did, let me change my screen share to show just my desktop and not just that program. So the first thing I did was in Chrome, or in Google, it doesn't have to be Chrome, to any browser, you just do a countdown timer. And that lets you do a really big clock, and it does a countdown. So what I'm going to do is drag this onto my second display over here and make that full screen. And you'll see what I'm going to do with that in a second. So then in OBS here, I'll make a scene for my countdown timer and use a screen capture for that. You can do window capture or display capture. Window capture works really well, especially for capturing Zoom videos. You can do this really easily in Zoom, and I'll demo that in just a second. But so I'll say window capture, and then I'll pick Chrome countdown timer, and there we go. And so now I have a full screen display that is my countdown timer, and I can hit start, and that's running. So as soon as you're not going to show them you starting a timer, but you'll cue that up when they start the Q&A, and when we hit the 5-minute mark, you can cut that. And if you guys watch my video into Zoom in the gallery view, you'll see I go to the timer. Right? It's just sending the display capture back to you. So you can use this for anything. You can add text layers on top of this. So wrap up.
You're manually setting up your timer then. You're not, this is not tied to any sort of show run.
Right. So this timer, most of the shows we're doing, they're loose. They're not, the timing is not broadcast accurate. It's like they're shooting for a 90-minute show. They're going to start 2 minutes late on purpose because they want people to filter into the live room. And then, it's all a little loose. So these timers, we're starting them arbitrarily based on when they get to a specific point in our broadcast. So when they start the Q&A, it may be within a minute of our predicted time. So we don't have a clock running for the whole show. We're generating clocks as we go based on how long we've decided they want to let this thing run. And then they'll run these Q&As for, say, 15 minutes, but they're not always going to actually wrap it up on time. And we're not tied to any really hard timelines for most of these shows. So we're just arbitrarily making these clocks on the fly to adapt to the changing show as it goes on.
And so what you would see in here is like where Tom's window is in Zoom, says Friday's Films live stream, he would have that, say, program window, and that would be his live edit that's going out to the world. And then where I am, if I was the director, if Zoe was the director, instead of seeing our image, we would have the clock going in and out, and that window would be the information window, the director window, kind of the comms.
Exactly. So you can use this to, send notes to them. Right. So you can put up these countdowns. I can toggle these. So what I would probably do is start with the countdown just running like that, where you just see a clock. And then I would fade in when we got to, say, a minute and a half, fade in the wrap up Q&A and let them know, hey, like we're starting wrap up Q&A. And then Roger will go a step further and, maybe do one that is like a bigger screen or make the clock larger, things like that. So I've found using these display captures and simple websites like that, you can get all of this type of communication for that return audio. The other thing you can do really well in here with that screen capture is these two-ups, as we call it. So let me just rearrange my windows a little bit because I'm using screen share.
Question.
Yeah.
How are you just capturing the time rather than the entire Google display?
Sure. So here, let me, so you can kind of see in this live window, I guess the output you're seeing from me right now is, let me reset that a little bit so it's a little cleaner. So it's hard to see because it's on an external display, but right now that display full screen is the Chrome browser. So you can see all the way down to the edge. In my window capture settings, I've chosen Chrome. So you see here, I've chosen the specific program I want it to capture. Then in this one specifically, I just hit, you can see there's this little full screen button. That makes it full screen. It takes over my display. You could do the exact same thing with a Google Slide deck, right? You can have a Google Slides up and you're scrubbing through the slides and just doing a full screen capture and bring it in that way.
Cool. Yeah, I missed that full screen thing.
So I'm going to use the same mechanism, screen capture, to do a two-up shot here. So because I'm, what am I saying here? Because I am screen sharing, it's a little bit trickier. But so I've already kind of built this, and I'm just going to slowly take apart these layers and show you what I've got. So I've got two window captures built already. So this one, again, is capturing the zoom. On Windows, you need to make sure you're using the newest updated Windows 10. Mac users, it just seems to work. There's very little to do there. You say, OK. And so now I have a layer that's capturing this zoom window. And actually, let me clear my filters so I can show you. OK, so first, you start with a screen capture. It's going to show you the whole zoom gallery view or window. So if I actually take this, I can make it gallery view. I can make it speaker view, whatever. I'm going to make this decent sized. It doesn't need to be full screen, but it needs to be big. So you can see what I'm doing on my external display over here is scaling up the zoom window. And in my capture here, it's scaling with me. So if I make it full screen, it gets confused for a minute. Hold on. Sometimes when you adjust the display too much, you have to go into here and sort of toggle it, like turn it on and off. There we go. So you see when I put her in full screen mode, it captures it. Then you can crop and scale. So the first thing I would do before I start doing that is put a mask over it. So I have this 2-up mask that we've built. It's just simple Photoshop PNG file with a cutout where we're going to put video behind it. And we can scale our videos to fit and cover up anything we don't want to see. So I would just drag these corners and scale it down to fit, and you'll quickly notice the issue. So you can see this overlap on the left side here, right? Even if I get you scaled nicely, it's a decent resolution shot, it's going to look good next to somebody else. I have this issue. So then we have to crop in on that side. So we do, if you right click on your layer, you have filters, or your, I guess your source, you have filters. There's a bunch of filters in here. The only one I've really messed with is the crop and pad, which is what it sounds like, it's cropping. So I add that, and there's, you just sort of, usually it's a bit of a guess and check to do this. I'll start, say, at 50 on the left. Now you'll notice on my window over here on the left, it actually, undo that, it doesn't take this edge and move it that way. It shrinks the whole video the other way. So it's kind of like counterintuitive a little bit. So if I do crop from the right, 50 pixels. Oh, hold on. If you hit enter, it hides it. If I crop from the right 50 pixels, let's make that 100. You can see it's actually not showing us any difference because that's off display. So what I usually do is, that's why I say it's like a bit of trial and error. So I'll maybe crop 50, and you can see as the more I crop this way, the closer she's getting to the center of the frame where I want her, right? Now I've got this excess on the right. I don't really care about that. It's out of my frame. Anything that's hidden is not super relevant. And look, it switched to Roger. So that's because I left this window in active speaker view. So what I should have done was pin Zoe or pinned whomever.
I think she turned her video off.
She was tired of being seen. That's fine. I'll pin Steph. There we go. Hi, Steph. So let's maybe move him a little further to the right, about 100. So you do the same thing for your second window. Now, since I'm screen sharing, I don't have 2 windows. So I'm going to tweak this a little bit and cheat. Normally, you'd pick the second zoom window just because you've got 2 in dual screen mode. Instead, I'm going to do a display capture. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll put myself in there because that's easy. In which case, currently, that's my video capture through the ATEM. Let me just give this some settings. Don't do that. This is not something you really need to worry about much, but where am I? Oh, great. It's not cooperating. Okay. Well, basically, you do the same thing again. I don't know how to show you while I'm screen sharing. But when you have dual screen mode, you can do the same thing. The other thing you could do is, what we've done in the past is gallery mode, and you have the fewest number of participants in the gallery. So you'd have, that would leave us with usually 4 or 5 cameras. So if we just start turning off some cameras for a minute, I'm just going to start, I'm going to stop some of your videos so I get a better number in the room. So when you see it like, maybe like that, so you see I've got relatively decent sized things to pull from here, right? Oops, grab me this window. And I'm going to turn our mask off for the moment. So I could do the exact same thing here, scale it up. No, don't scale that one. It likes to jump around on layers, which is kind of the annoying thing. I can grab David and crop in on him. So again, I'm going to have to be a lot more aggressive with my cropping. You know, let's make this 400, and then, you know, you can see it's starting to get closer, and it's too much on the top. So you can see you could do multiples of this and have more than one person at a time in your shot. So this is kind of, yeah.
Hey, if you want to do this and you want to go back to full screen, do you have to deal with, I mean, can you? It sounds like you're rescaling. So can you pop David? So once you crop him down, can you
and then go from gallery view to full screen view?
Yeah, go from him
Right?
to full,
So
back out to full
let
screen.
me, so right now, because I'm doing the screen sharing, it only lets me have one display. Normally, what I would have is Zoom in dual screen mode. And if you do that, you get 2 views you can pin people to. So what I would normally do is have 2 full screen pinned heads. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, and I have this built around that a little better. And I'll show you. So let's pin 2 people.
I might be mistaken, and I apologize if I misunderstood what the question was, but my understanding is that if you're using like, even if it's the video capture to window capture in one scene, in any resizing that you're doing, if you then go to the full screen in like another scene or even a different layer, the resizing is not on there. So you can pop between resize and a 2-shot to the full shot.
So you,
Maybe that wasn't what was spoken.
Yeah. So you could do something like that where you have 2 scenes built. One of them is a single, and one of them is a 2-shot, right? And you could have 2 different scalings and croppings on 2 different instances of the same capture. So say you just have the gallery view you're looking at, and there's 4 shots in it, and you could have 2 shots that are singles, and then another shot that's 2 people side by side, and another shot that's maybe 3 of those up at once. So you can have multiple instances of the same thing. Now, to get the best quality, what I do is use this dual screen mode, like I was describing, and I'm just putting it back together on Wirecast on OBS on my system here, so I can cut to it for you guys. If you're in dual screen mode in Zoom, it'll give you 2 Zoom windows, and you can pin a head on each one, right? So right now, I've got David pinned on one and Roger pinned on the other. And 5 more seconds. And so if you look at my program view, it's showing me, and I've got a little scaling work to do on it and cleanup to do because I just quickly threw that together. But it's showing me David on one side and Roger on the other. Now, I can't really cut to this display without breaking it, but my shot on the left monitor, it's just 2 windows kind of side by side. They're actually overlapping because I'm not using an output capture. I'm capturing the actual video that's being rendered in the operating system. So this works really well on Wirecast on a Mac. We can do the exact same thing as how Roger handles his shows. You can see if I cut that, I've cleaned them up a little bit. And then if David and Roger unmute themselves and they're talking back and forth, we've got our 2-shot here.
There you go.
Does it work?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not routing your guys' audio back to you right now because you're inside Zoom, so it might look out of sync right now to you. But if we're doing something like this, I'm not broadcasting in sync audio back to Zoom. I'm broadcasting this to the world. So when we're doing this, the output from OBS is being sent to an external display. So in my case, that's camera. If I open here, I think this is going to break it. You can't really see it, huh? Yeah, it's going to break it. So yeah, that's because I'm routing you back to you. But basically, the way we're handling this in a live show is there's a separate computer that's our graphics operator. They're providing the video files, the slides, and these types of shots. So that computer is sending a pre-encoded 2-up shot, right? We're not processing all of the work of generating this shot on the same computer that's encoding our stream to the internet, right? So the graphics operator is cutting to these types of things. So they might have, if I go back to my screen share now, you'll see in this project, I've got video playback queued up here. I've got, I would have countdowns queued up. I could have slides queued up, and I'll be cutting through these different things, right? So it's going to be broken right now because of the screen share, but I'll have these 2-up shots just like any other preloaded media asset to cut to, right? We build these on the days before the show and in the setup before the show, and then we can cut to. Let's cut back to me in the ATEM, and so you can essentially take control over one of the inputs in the ATEM and provide more production value that way. So OBS does all the same things as Wirecast. If you wanted to go, you could stream directly from here. If you look at settings, you can put in a stream key just like you would in any other program. It has some built-in platforms to start. These are just going to be a URL. So if you don't have one in here, you just do custom, and it's your standard RTMP URL and server. So every platform we stream to will provide that in one way or another.
Where did you do the virtual out again?
So are you first you need to install a plugin for that. So that's what I was saying. I need to finish testing that with Roger's system.
For OBS? It's not built in?
No, it's not built in. So there's a Mac plugin, and I can find, I sent Roger the link to it, and I'll put it in the chat.
I can put it in the chat if you guys want.
Yeah, put that link in the chat. There's a new installer that's a plugin you install, and that gives you that inside your tools window. It gives you this virtual camera option to enable that virtual camera out. Like I said, there's still some troubleshooting to do with that. The plugin's like 2 weeks old, so I haven't had a chance to. I haven't gotten it working myself yet. Sounds like it works, but I got to do a little more homework on that. I just got into it this morning. Roger, you just put that in the chat.
I did, yeah. Hey, Tom, can you, for the people that are kind of still new to it and wrapping their heads around it, can you pull back a little bit and show context? And what I mean by that is like, pull up a screen share of Zoe's run of show and say, this is what the ask is. And then this is how we kind of go through it and we pull off the ask. It just helps them kind of wrap their brains around exactly why you're doing.
Yeah, let me just find a run of show. It's a good idea, Roger.
Sorry guys, my internet cut out.
That's okay. You missed everything fun.
Well, you were using me as a 2-up, so I felt bad.
That's why we wondered where you went. So, okay, let's screen share again. So this, I'm going to scale this up. I think it's probably pretty hard for you guys to read right now. This is a run of show that Zoe makes. All of our producers make these for every show, and it goes asset by asset. It has time. It has a photo reference. It usually will have a file name. If I go to a more later one where we got a little more advanced, it'll have the actual asset name directly. So when you're loading all your assets, you know exactly the name. And so the graphics operator is driving these images you're seeing on the left here, right? And then when it goes to like live video, these sections, it's we're switching between Zoom camera sources. Right? Is this kind of what you were trying to explain, Roger?
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what I want to explain.
So most of the time, we'll have.
So you can load your windows with these basic in order. That's why Tom was saying this is asset 1, 2,
Yeah,
3,
so I load all my shows in an order that matches how those assets are going to be used. So when I'm running a show, I'm just stepping through the shots in order, right? Not bouncing around and shit. I'm just like 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. And then the job is more about just keeping up with where you are in your run of show and assets. So the graphics operator is doing the same thing, but they're only driving the graphics. So if it's a full screen video from our Zoom cameras or a live camera or whatever, the graphics op is just waiting, doing nothing. And their feed is just going into the ATEM and sitting there. In live shows in person, we will also use that feed to maybe go to a downstage monitor for talent to watch. They'll show them what slide they're on. That's how we're partly using the virtual camera, is to be kind of like our downstage monitor, right? We have one that is my virtual camera as a program feed, and one coming from Roger, who's driving some of these backstage graphics, sort of like a confidence monitor in that way.
Hey, Tom, Melvin, question.
Yeah.
you are alluded to the graphics op being the one who's generating your 2-up windows, your 3-box, 4-box.
Right.
If you're making those changes in show, that would be viewed in that slide column of the run a show rundown, right?
Yeah. So
and how does that get updated?
Right. So the way we usually use those for most of our shows, maybe let's share that one more time here. Most of the time, we're going to know predefined who's going to be talking. So if we go down to one of our Q&A sections here, like here, this section is a Q&A. It's got video from, you'll see in this video column, 4 different people, right? So sometimes the numbers vary. And so before the show, we'll decide during this Q&A, we're going to want 2-ups that look like this. So for a show like this, what I would probably do I would have one, you're only going to have one live 2-up at any given time. So you're not going to be switching these around live, right? This 2-up's going to live, and then we're going to cut away from it, and that'll give you time to reset it until it's ready, just like you're reframing a shot in any other live show, right?
Yeah, so if you lose a guest, you might have to do something, correct?
So like when we're doing these live shows, one of the things that we have is a background comm system. We'll have a Google Hangouts chat going on between all the people who are technically running the show. So I would be communicating with the graphics operator saying, okay, I want to have a 2-up with these 2 people coming up. And so during the time before that, you'll build that 2-up. And what that usually will mean is let's see if it's going to work if I share here. You'll have this layout already built with your window captures already set up. And all you have to do is go into Zoom and pin the appropriate people to the appropriate windows. So you'll see this display that's live, you got me and Trevor on it. If I instead pin my video, now I can frame my 2-up shot appropriately to fit me and crop me in, right? So sometimes because I'm doing a screen share, I have to do a little more rearranging. You shouldn't have to do any of that live. So what you'll do to prepare the shot, to essentially you're pointing the cameras by pinning in Zoom which videos you want to see. So sometimes that could be on the left, we might have the host who's always fielding our questions. And on the right, we might be the active speaker view. And Zoom is going to auto switch that active speaker view to whoever picks up the mic, right? So we have our host who's always ready and always responding, and they're looking nice and they're smiling along. And then we have whoever's actively talking. Sometimes we'll use it that way where I'll cut from a close-up on my host to a 2-up shot in active speaker. So it's the host and somebody's going to come on, and I don't know who yet. And then once that person comes on, I can then cut to one of my other cameras that's their clean shot, right? Or maybe it's a back and forth, and we leave it on the 2-up for a little while it's back and forth between the 2 people. So inside of our run of show, we will know we have X number of people in the meeting. We want to be able to cut to these specific people. So the 2-up shot maybe has Luis Herrera, who's moderating. We have him pinned on one monitor, one half of my 2-up shot. And then we have the other one is active speaker, or it's pinned on whoever we think he might respond. A lot of these discussion type shows are a little loose like that, where we don't necessarily know who's going to start talking. Mostly they're one host and 2 people responding. So usually it'll be, a limited number of options to who's going to be involved in those 2-up type shots. But it's also like most of these hosts aren't professional on-camera talent, right? They're not used to this. They are.
I had a question. I think there might be a Zoom.
Yeah, I was going to say, just like with that, to finish that thought, we're listening to them talk as they start to ask the question, and Dr. Herrera might say, "Hey, Richard, what do you think about this and this and this?" And like we're informing who's going to be cutting to next based on what's happening in the show. So based on our run of show, we can pre-build these assets, but then during the show, we are tweaking them a little bit to fit the needs of what's actually going on.
Tom, this might be redundant because you guys have covered this in probably
Okay.
other training videos, but if you are using active speaker, does it
Yeah.
have the ability where you can active speaker switch only audio, and that way it allows you to
No.
manually in video? No.
Right.
Okay.
So what I do in that case is I have an ATEM mini in front of me. It has 4 inputs. I'll have one of those inputs usually will be dedicated to active speaker, and then a couple of ones will be dedicated to pinned specific people. So I might have input 1 is the first host, and then maybe there's a second host for the second half of the show, and then that's input 1 and 2. Input 3 maybe will be the graphics operator, and then input 4 is active speaker switching, right? So how we control who can be visible in active speaker is just by muting microphones. So if we know of the 5 cameras in the room, we only want to hear from 3 people, we just mute the other parties, and then they can't show up in my active speaker window. The safety is that you can cut away to your host, right? So I'll have a cutaway to whomever isn't going to, or is a safety shot at all times. In our in-person live shows, we always have a wide shot for that purpose, right? You always have the safety you can always cut to. It's always going to look good no matter what's happening. That doesn't exist as easily in these shows. So sometimes it's a pinned host we know is like our safety shot is this host, especially if they're a little more experienced. They've done this a couple times. The other option would be active speaker. We'll cut to active speaker as our safety shot. So like if the host asks a question, but he doesn't make it clear who he's asking to, I'll cut to active speaker and wait. And it's our job before the event to train them and explain to them when a question is asked, somebody needs to start talking in order for us to know where to cut to. So sometimes it's sitting on the host, and it's just because he just finished talking and he's going to leave it up in the air. And it's just like they're going to leave that turd up there as long as they want until somebody starts talking. That's kind of one of the limitations of the medium. We can only do what's available to us within the limitations of something like Zoom. That ultimately is our limitation.
So, just to go back to, I think, the Zoom question that I wanted to ask. In order, you refer to having a separate monitor with maybe the pinned host. For each of those separate monitors or those separate feeds into the ATEM, are you signed into the Zoom account meeting as a different co-host? So, in order to have all those separate ones?
The way I do it, we're ignoring the screen capture for a moment, where I have to get my 4 inputs. I have 4 different computers with logins into the Zoom. Now, they don't have to be a different account. They can be the same Tom at Fridays Films every time. What you do, you log in once to one computer, and then when you join from a second computer, it'll kick the first one out, but it won't kick you out of the meeting. It'll just leave you in the meeting indefinitely. So you can use one account as many times as we want, right? We will have one paid subscribed Zoom account per show, and that is the actual host that's going to schedule the meeting. It's going to give us all the features we need to use inside Zoom. But the rest of the users can be anybody. It doesn't really matter. You don't have to have any special login for that. If you are doing it through screen capture, where it's only running on one computer, then you don't even have to worry because you're only doing one account at a time, right? You're only in the Zoom once. So that doesn't really matter. Now to say about to respond to the dual screen part of that, that's 2 different settings. Firstly, it's the fact that I have 2 monitors in front of me, right? On a Mac, you don't have to have that. If you have a high enough resolution display, you can do it in one monitor. There's also the setting inside Zoom where you have to put it into dual screen mode, where it will separate you 2 different displays that you can kind of pin whoever and do different things with. You can make one gallery view and one active speaker, or like you can kind of rearrange them however you want to use them. So you kind of have to do both of those things. The only time you can't do that, even if you don't have 2 displays, the real limitation is based around the computer's performance. So one of my systems up here is a really weak old system that used to be my TV computer, and it can't do dual screen mode because the CPU is too weak. It's just, it won't let it. So that's the one that I only ever use as active speaker. It's just my active speaker input because I can always do that no matter what. And it works well for that. So yeah, I mean, this is OBS. I want to quickly look at the output settings if you do want to try and use this for streaming. Sorry here.
Real quick, Trevor, you in OBS?
Yeah.
So you got the virtual camera to work?
Yep.
Great. So that works.
How did you
So-
get off of that link?
I read the README file.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to actually test it yet. I found that like this morning at 9:30 kind of thing. So you're seeing the settings here. The settings you kind of care about are your stream and output. So I was showing you stream. It's just your standard RTMP inputs. So this we would find via whatever platform you're using, YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook. It works for anybody. It's pretty agnostic. The second part you have is your output. When you first start, it's going to look a little different because I have it in advanced mode, but it won't let me go back. But this is where you can set your output encoding settings. So first I need to give it a stream. So let's go to YouTube and apply. I have it set up for the tests I was doing yesterday. This lets you set your encoding settings. Again, this is how you can change your audio tracks. So if you wanted to do that mix minus I was describing, not put your audio back into this ever, but maybe use your audio back to Zoom. You assign one to channel 1, the other to channel 2, separate them that way. Same thing for your recording. You'll see it uses the stream encoder. This is one thing that I like about OBS instead of Wirecast. If you use the stream encoder, it's only encoding once and putting it in 2 places. It's writing that file locally and sending it to the internet. In Wirecast, it does 2 separate encodings. Even if you're using the same bitrate and everything, it does less work that way, but it still has to do 2 processes. So this handles that a lot better, and I've had less system resources used to record here and stream at the same time. I've not really dug into the audio bit rates. I'm sure there's people who know more about audio that could give you info there. And the replay buffer, I don't think we would ever use for that. So yeah, that's kind of the output settings you need to know would be in stream and output. I would encourage you guys to start digging around in this software because there's like a huge amount of plugins and available ways to add on to this software and make it more functional and more capable to do whatever you want out of it. I think for now, if you start installing it and start, see how you get that virtual camera. I'm going to put links in the Slack group, and I don't know if all of you are a part of the Slack group, but we should get you all in that, and you should get this software installed and tested. That virtual camera thing.
Put a link to the easy installer as opposed to the source code.
And we have a few people that aren't on Friday's Films. Can they be?
Yeah. Well, I know Arnell is, and Peter, you are, right?
Am I
think,
on the Slack?
Yeah. Are you on the Slack channel? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay. I'll need to check with somebody who admins that. I don't know who that is. But we'll get you. I'll send these links just in the email thread as well, just for now, to make sure you have them to start. Yeah.
Trevor, you said there's an easy installer for that virtual, as opposed to what was.
Yeah, I'm getting that. Hang on.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the link that Roger put in the chat, that's the main repo. If you scroll down, you'll see an installing section where there's a link to a PKG, like a package file for OS X.
Yeah, I literally had 7 minutes between 2 Zoom calls to pull this off.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've not had a chance to get deep into this, but I'm happy
And you need to relaunch Zoom.
Yeah, that's kind of the stuff. It's those little things you're gonna have to do, just like what order you start the programs in to make sure it's functional. In that respect, one thing I'll always do is start all my virtual outputs first before I start my Zooms. Like anywhere I'm going to use that output, I want to start after the output's already running. that seems to cause less hiccups with it not showing up, you know? So yeah, this is OBS. It's good fun. If you start having trouble with this, we can get really ugly and you can learn cam twist next. It's horrible. It's truly horrible. All right. I think
Well,
that's...
thanks, Tom, for doing this. I'm going to hop off and